Hi, welcome to Living as Latinas. My name is Shakira and I have my co-host Audi here with me.
Hello.
On this week's episode, we will be discussing side effects of COVID-19 pandemic as it pertains to mental health.
Yeah. So in brand new studies coming out of China, Spain, and the United States and other countries, the researchers are finding out in real time how people are dealing with this situation. And the results that we're getting are not uplifting, but they're also not even surprising, right? We feel that it was going to be a difficult situation in many, many, many different ways. And so we are all suffering, all of us. Some of us are suffering more than others, but we're all going through something major, right? Um, you don't have to have lost a job or a loss to feel like life is just difficult. And humans are complex in general. Imagine that with things being even more complex in the outside. And so we're seeing that in the mental health of
Yeah,
everybody.
it's so true. Imagine already having trauma and then adding another trauma on top of that, right? So like complex traumas that we have to deal with. Um, Also, like ironically, many of the strategies that people have put into place to help reduce the risk of getting sick or the virus, also has been able to like put people at risk for mental health issues. So many studies have reported that on the unique mental health strategies faced by people of color, indigenous communities, undocumented immigrants, and many others whose baseline of what constitutes mental wellness were already lower than that of the general population.
Yeah. In the frontline health and in the caregiving industry. Imagine you're going through the same thing that everybody's going through in your personal life, but on top of that, you have to go to work and you have to be like right there and dealing with and help other people uh, with the trauma.
Hmm.
And that is huge because these people are, in my point of view anyway, these people are the people that should be taken care of the most because they're right there helping others. And I think that it has uh, come to the point where your glass is already empty. What do you give anymore, right? Because it's been a really difficult 12 months and it's not ending. I mean, it's changing, but I hear people talking about I want to go back to normal. I don't know what's normal. Like I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
Right. Definitely. And I seen like recently with like the global mandates of masks, different people are like not are reducing the mask mandate, right? Or one of the other things, like if you get the vaccination, you're able to, be outside, you're able to go to places without masks on, all those things, right? And so people are like, oh wait, like things are getting back to normal, like I'm gonna be able to be with my friends and hang out and be fine and not have to wear a mask. And it's giving people some hope of normalcy. But like the long-term effects of all these things that we have gone through this year, we still don't know. We don't have data for that stuff. So
Exactly. And you know what's so crazy to me? Amongst other things that are crazy to me, right? Um, this is the first pandemic that humanity have gone through in the digital era, right? So now the world is totally different from what it was even 20 years.
mhm.
Uh, the technology is crazy.
Hmm.
we're able to do things now with technology that 20 years ago was just a dream or a movie, right? We used to see some of those things in movies and be like, yeah, whatever, that would never happen. Um, and so I think that it has a lot of positive things, especially in the situation that we're in, because, oh yeah, I can't go and visit my friends, but I have social media and the ability to talk face to face, kind of a phone call with friends. But the other side of it, having a pandemic in the digital era, is that there's so many things going on. There's no way. I mean, there are ways, but it's really difficult for you to unplug from the negative things, uh, the sad things that have been going on because it's everything.
Yeah.
What do you got under the bed? Because it
It.
is,
Yeah.
and that has to affect you somehow in your mood, even because
No.
it's a lot.
Like I think about like all of the stuff in the social media, in the news, and different viewpoints about politics and policing and all those things. And like I have personally been traumatized by seeing some of the videos that I have seen in the news. Definitely has increased my anxiety, definitely has made me very nervous, and overthinking things and like feeling insecure. And it wasn't even about like the pandemic itself. It's just like the idea that this digital era, we're exposed to so much information. And I don't think that that's a good thing. I really don't. I think that too much information sometimes about certain things, especially with like media, where they like put all the negative on there. They sensationalize, I forgot to say it, sensationalization of like bad news, to kind of like have us in fear all the time and control us, and it's so scary. And like when you're watching the news, most of us, we grew up with our parents watching the news and every day in the nighttime before they go to sleep, or the first thing they do is have their coffee in the morning and watch the news and all that stuff. And like it's never anything good. And so the whole day you're like thinking about like all these things like that happened, and it creates a lot of insecurity for people and trauma.
It does. It does. I actually stopped watching the news about maybe 5, 6 years ago, and it was all about that. I noticed that every day after I watched the news, I felt like hopeless in a way, and that is not me at all.
Hmm.
And back then, I used to watch Primer Impacto, and one day I'm watching Primer Impacto, right? Like every day at 5, and then I noticed for the first time they've been doing this for the longest time. But that day, for some reason, I noticed that they have this segment at the end, uh, noticia positiva or something like that. I forgot how they called it, but it was like a whole hour, a whole 55 minutes of negative things, killing and poverty and all of these things. And then the last 5 minutes that they give you the positive. And to me that day, maybe I was just having a bad day in general, but to me it was just, I felt stupid. I'm like, seriously, you mean to tell me that that is where I live? Like this world it's really, is that what it is?
Hmm.
All negative things, that there's just one person in millions and millions and millions of people do something right. So I refused to live in that world. And so I moved to another one in my head because I was
You're like,
like,
yeah. Wait.
me fui, because I
Yeah,
was like, this can't be life.
definitely not. And one of the things too, like, and I've seen this locally too, during the pandemic, the increase of domestic violence has surpassed numbers. Because if you think about kids being at home and not being monitored by school systems that were protecting them because parents were being abusive, how do you keep track of that? How do you keep track if a kid's not showing their face in a Zoom and you don't know if they have a black and blue? Um, you can't keep track of now that parents are home with their kids and they're not working. Um, there could be alcoholism, there could be drug abuse, there could be all these things contributing to this domestic violence. Um, and we've seen just so many people die unnecessarily, kids disappearing. It's very, very sad.
And that is a really good point, Akira, that you made, because um, in general, when people talk about the pandemic, they talk about the actual virus, right? And I understand why, but there's other viruses going around that are, uh, in my point of view, that are that should be or should be treated with the same importance. And you bring one of them up, which is really important. People are going crazy. People are in fear. People are depressed. People are anxious. People have lost jobs. People have lost family members, friends. People don't know what to do inside a house because they're not used to doing it. And even after 12 months, it's some of us are not getting used to it and the pacing, right? And so all of those little things add up
Hmm.
and they can bring a really bad recipe, right? And I think that that is really, really important, especially with the domestic violence, with the child abuse, with the suicidal ideation that have increased. Teenagers, kids, teenagers, they're in front of a computer all day because they got to go to school.
Hmm.
And someone the other day, I was talking about this, and that person told me, "Oh, that's not a big deal because they do that anyway. They used to do that anyway." It's not the same thing when you're in front of a computer because you're playing Call of Duty or you're watching TikToks than going to school trying to learn something. It is not the same. Your mind is not in the same mood. These kids are tired. Moms are tired.
Yeah,
Dads don't know what to do anymore. Kids are falling asleep
it's
because
true.
it must be really hard. I mean, I don't want to go to school in front of the computer like that. And I'm an adult, and I might go and take a coffee break.
I know. And you think about too the other side of that. So like all of these schools gave computer and internet access to students, right? Parents that are not able to monitor their kids, it gave them a new avenue to see things that maybe were controlled a little better in their home. I have tons of clients that I've worked with, and one of the parent struggles that they have is being able to take away the tablet because every time they do, or the computer, there's just hell at home. Kids are not able to disconnect anymore. They're not able. So if they're on it all day for school and they want to use it then for play afterwards, they're on it for 12, 13, 17, 20 hours a day. They're going to sleep at 3 in the morning. Parents just are having a hard time struggling setting limits. There's just so much bad stuff out there that's being exposed to them at the same time, and it's really heartbreaking. Really heartbreaking.
It is because then what happens is that parents are in a place where it's difficult to make a decision or to even know what the right decision about what to do with the technology. Yeah, do I take it away? And then if you do, what is what is the other thing that they can do? Because most parks are closed. So it's not like you could just go and go to the park. Uh, so most places that you could take them so they can play, they're closed. So you're gonna have your kids just sitting there looking at the wall.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's really difficult. And then at the same time, most parents are so tired that they don't want to go through the whole bar, like the whole argument. Some
Here, take
parents
it
are just choosing to to be alive
to
because
keep the peace. Hmm.
in your head if I have to go through this again, something's gonna happen and it's not gonna be good. And just go do whatever you need to do, and that solves the issue at that moment. But like you're saying, how is it going to be affected um, in 5 years, in 3 years, next year? How are we going to take it back? Because I don't think that people understand that these things, with drugs and alcoholism, all of these things work the same in the brain.
Hmm.
The brain doesn't know the difference between being addicted to the computer or addicted to alcohol. I mean, the substance in the body is different, but the dopamine that you're getting is not different.
Hmm.
You're getting high off of something that you're doing, and the brain doesn't distinguish
Hmm.
between something and something else. So basically, the way I see it, these kids are getting addicted to something that is going to be really hard to take away when we realize what we've done.
Yeah, it's gonna be very difficult to take it back. Definitely. And another thing too during this pandemic, like now that the schools are opening again, parents have to really think about whether or not they should send their kids to school, whether they keep them at home. If they do keep them at home, how can they continue to work? I personally, like, I sent my kids to school for a week. They all got sick as a dog. I could not deal with it. And I don't like just the stress of having to during that week. I remember like not sleeping, one throwing up, the other with a fever, like all these things with sending one kid back to school, introducing all those germs to our home. Um, and just everybody being so sick and so tired. It was crazy. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I called the school this week and it's like, you guys are not having my kids anymore. Like, they're going to be remote for the rest of the year and next year if I have the chance to do it too. Like, I don't care if I have to sacrifice things in my life, but like, this is ridiculous. I was so mad. It definitely, like, I don't know, it threw a wrench into a lot of my plans. Um, but like I'm able to make that decision to be like, okay, you can stay home with me. Not every parent has the opportunity to do that, you know and that's a really difficult decision to make. A lot of people are like, okay, well, I was working during the morning and now I can't, so I lost my job, so now I'm home with my kids. I can't afford to send them to a babysitter because I don't have that income anymore, um and
when
it's
I, when
really
I heard about that, that they were planning to have kids come back, the first thing that came to my mind was, here we go again, because we were in that same boat few months back, trying to make a decision. But then after you finally made the decision, you get used to the decision. Now you go back. It's like going backwards. Now you go in the same place, so having to make the same decision, but now you have some more trauma to deal with while you make the decision based on whatever your decision was back then, right?
hmm hmm
And it is difficult and it doesn't go away. I hear people talk about, oh, the pandemic and the virus and the vaccine and all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, 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 good, good. What about all this other stuff? Like, who's going to talk about this? Who's going to help with dealing with this? This is going to explode and it's not going to be pretty. And people not even paying attention. And to me, it's like, are we living in the same freaking world? Because I'm over here thinking about what are we gonna do with all of this stuff? And the adults? You know, we go to our own thing, we go to trauma and all of that. But kids kids are having a hard, they don't know how to deal with it. They have never been through something like this.
Mm-hmm.
They have never seen their parents with, you know, the type of stress that we are right now. This is like a once in a lifetime situation, and it's a bad one. And
That's,
so they're trying to understand what they're feeling, what's going on in their head, why are they feeling the way they're feeling. And at the same time, we are doing the same thing as parents, right? But we are not meeting in the middle. I feel like everybody is trying to deal and understand what's happening alone.
mm-hmm.
But what is that doing to the relationship? What is that doing to the family union? What is that doing to your health in general? Because
Yeah.
being stressed like this for so long cannot be good for your heart. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it's just common sense to me. That cannot be good. So how is your health going to be 3 years if you keep going this?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you stop? Because most of these things are not even in your control.
None of it.
So it is really difficult to navigate.
Yeah. And like also like with the, having all these stress, having all these depression, anxiety, like people want to seek help for it. People are trying to seek help for it. Um, but the need is so great that there's not enough people to be able to access these services. I know like agencies having 6 months plus wait lists. um, you go see your PCP, but they're not really equipped to deal with these things. They'll see you for 15 minutes and maybe prescribe you something temporarily, but they're not getting to the core issues. They're not teaching you the skills. They're just like a band-aid for these things, until you can see somebody and talk about it.
And the crazy thing about that is that it's not a new situation. We had that situation for the longest time before we got into the pandemic. And it wasn't really dealt with back then, and it's not being dealt with right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so my concern is first, when when is it going to be dealt with? One, and what is to happen before that happens? Like what is it that we're waiting for? And I say we as a collective, human,
Yeah.
because I don't think that I really think that we should take responsibility for our own health in general, for our mental health, for our kids' health. We can't um, keep, passing the torch to somebody else. We got to take responsibility. I think it's time to do that. We don't have the resources that we need to do that. Most people, you and I, that are mental health counselors, even we find ourselves in situations where we're like, y ahora, como el chavo, y ahora, ¿quién podrá defenderme? And every time something like that happens to me, it breaks my heart. Not for me, it breaks my heart for the other millions of people who don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I might know someone, I might know where to go online, find the information, and navigate it, right? But most people don't have those skills. And so it is difficult,
Mm-hmm.
really difficult time in many different ways.
Yeah. And I mean, so what do you think are those things that we can do to help, reduce those negative effects? What can we, as clinicians, as moms, as educators, teach people?
I think that the most important thing is that we got to go back to the basics. I think we complicate things. because the problem is so big, or the situation is so big and new, that we think that the solution has to be the same. You know, it has to be big and like unheard of.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
that's not how it works. We go back to basics and we find a solution. It's like right there. For example, something we can do is just relax, engage in the things that make you feel good. You don't need science for that, right? That can be anything. It can be singing in the car. It can be having two classes instead of one. It can be buying one of those. Okay, this is real story. I went out to Target, like always, for nothing, just, in case I forgot I needed something, I see it, and then I buy it, right? So I'm just in Target looking around, and I see this really cool coffee maker with the, what do you call it, the K cup thingy.
Oh yes, yes, yes,
And I
yes.
see it, and the coffee maker sees me. We make eye contact, and it's like, how come I never met you before? We have this really nice conversation. I take her home. I buy all of these new, flavors of coffee that I never knew existed. It's like
Mm.
I found a new world.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this is not a big deal, but it is a big deal because now when I make my coffee, it smells different. I'm excited because I'm trying out these new flavors, and it's just making my life better. And it's just coffee. It's not a big deal. It's coffee. And so, when I say going back to basics, it's little things like that.
Mhm.
It's calling your friend on the phone and, I don't know, talking about, remember this guy from high school, blah blah blah, and genial, anything that takes your mind off of the negativity, the people dying, the, oh my god, I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, and remembering that in 2019 you still didn't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, and you're fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
How about that? Remembering that, so we still didn't know, and now people feel, including myself, like it's a big deal that we don't know what's gonna happen. Well, we never knew. This is not new.
Yeah.
We're just making it because
Later.
of everything that has happened. We have made it bigger in our head.
Mhm.
But it's kind of the same.
Yeah. And one thing I was telling somebody today, I was giving them an example that when we turn adults, we always tend to think about responsibilities, bills, money, and that those things equate happiness. But when we were little, we played with rocks, we played with marbles, we made up games, we sang, we played in the rain, like outside. Those things that made us happy and were very, very, very simple. And I said, as adults, what we really need to do is find and feed our inner child, because that's when you find the greatest joy, right? In the simplest things that made you happy before. Nobody taught us those things. We learned them for ourselves, and that's what we need, like, to be able to do those things again. And they were like, "Oh, that's a really good example," and I was like, "Yes."
It is really good. It's a life changing example
Yes.
because that is exactly what it is that we need. And that's why many people feel like they never find a way to get out of, you know, the wheel and the craziness. It's because you never do the thing that you have never done.
Hmm.
And that in therapy and in life in general, some people really, they're stuck because of that, because they never think that something so little and simple can make such a difference. But what I always uh, come back with is, what are you gonna do? You have done all of this other stuff, and they haven't worked. you're the same. How about you do something else and
Mm-hmm.
see what happens?
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing that can happen is nothing changes, but that's what's happening right now. So, right? But what about if it's break?
Yeah, you never know.
It usually will. It usually makes a difference. So that was $1 million.
Yeah. Another one would be also to like maybe like having a routine, right? Because things changed. A lot of stuff changed. A lot of things that we were used to doing. Like if you're working from home, your routine was so different. It was like, traveling to work, seeing your coworkers, having lunch there, going home at 5, whatever it may had been, um, things that felt comfortable for us that made us feel good, right? And so those things are gone. A lot of that stuff is gone. So we have to create a new routine, something that does feel comfortable for us, something that we look forward to that makes us feel good. So
Exactly. Exactly. And we feel comfortable in the things that we know. And like you're saying, if you have a routine, you're gonna feel comfortable because you're gonna feel like you're in control of something.
mm-hmm.
And that is a really good thing. Something else that we can do is just maintain healthy habits. And that was something that still from the beginning to me was like, why are they only talking about, this thing that is going around and they're not talking about maybe going and buying multivitamin thing or drinking that, maybe stop eating french fries and eat more salad and maybe you drink more water. And now that you can't go out, how about you dance at home? Because whatever, you don't even have anything else to do. You're stuck in there. And I felt that was really weird because people were focusing on, the things that is going wrong. But your body is still your body and it still works the same way that it used to work in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So what did your body need back in 2019? It was good food. It was good sleep, lots of water, movement. Let's go back to doing a little bit of those things. And maybe our bodies are going to get in a place where this thing that is going around can even penetrate it because it's healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Because this thing is not um, like a whole new type of something. It's an illness. And how do you fight illness in general? You make your body strong. How do you do that? Well, you do all of this regular basic things
Mm-hmm.
that we learn.
I would love to see a study of like, having like 100 people, 50 that worked out, ate good, like all this stuff during the pandemic, and then measuring like their mental health and overall like happiness at the end. And then people who didn't do any of that, who just isolated and stayed at home and were like, oh, worrying. And then see whether or not they got COVID, right?
That would be really interesting, especially because there is one research that came out, I think, this past month. And what they were talking about was that 98%, I think it was, don't quote me people on this because you know, I'm old, can't remember numbers like that anymore.
Most.
But a really high percentage of people
Yeah.
that passed away from the virus were in bad shape physically, meaning they had other things going on in their health that were already going wrong
Mm-hmm.
and they were overweight. And so, what does that tell you? It tells you everything you need to know right there. So, if you take fear aside, because we all know that fear just doesn't let you think clear, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
let's take fear aside and let's just think with common sense. If there is something going on that can affect your health. How do you fight it? Will you make your body stronger? You do that with these things that we're talking about. And then, of course, the research is going to find that same thing because you can. That's how it
Mm-hmm.
works. Washing your hands, right? I understand. But if you wash your hands and you don't do anything else, only washing your hands and worrying about something, I don't think that's going to be very healthy because when the thing comes, your body is going to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think is going to happen next? You're going to get sick.
Yep.
And so
Definitely.
I get worried. I worry. Well, trust me, I worry. But I also think about this other stuff I used to work like 2 years
Mm-hmm.
before the thing happened. And people forgot the things I used to work before the thing happened
Yep.
because fear made it happen.
Very easy. Very easy to forget about the good things when something negative is happening in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another way too, like people staying connected, that helps, making sure you're calling your friends, you're setting dates, um, visiting people that you can visit that are in your group, or just making sure you're having those really, really like interpersonal good connections with people definitely helps.
And the other thing is staying informed. And that is like I don't know how to say that in English, pero un cuchillo de doble filo.
Mm-hmm.
Because staying informed means that you would have to seek information, but also seeking information too much can bring you back to all of the things that you're going, right? And so staying informed just in general, knowing what is happening, what are the things that they're saying we should be doing, what are the things they're saying we shouldn't be doing, and then just trying to make changes, adjust your based on that information. But let's not count how many people passed away yesterday because how is that helping you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just perpetuates your pain.
Your fear, your pain. Yeah.
There's no way that you can sit in front of TV seeing these numbers going up and up and up and up every day and not feel. And there's no way. There's no way that you're gonna go to bed and not remember those numbers before you fall asleep. There's no way. And so you already know there's something going around. You already know we have had 12 months of practice. I think we all know what is happening, what is a good idea, what is not so good. I mean, it changes all the time, but we have a good idea of how to stay safe. How about we focus on the other stuff, being healthier, being happier, staying connected to people? Because the bad side of things, we already know what they are. We painfully learn what they are
Mm-hmm.
in the last 12 months. I don't really think we need to keep doing that. I mean, we already know what it does.
Yeah, and those are things that, like, the bad part or the bad side of things is not something that we can really control. And like we've talked, the only part of this whole thing is that you can control is your reaction to it. What you do to make yourself feel better, because things are in our control. That is in our control. How we perceive things, how we react, who we keep in our life, what we do, eating healthy, making sure we're resting, changing things that are no longer working for us. All those things we can definitely control, and they will altogether contribute to a happier, better you, a better life for you. um and so focusing more on that, And those positive changes that you're able to make in your life is going to make things look better, regardless of what's going on the other side.
Exactly, exactly. And all of the other videos we have are exactly talking about what you just said, right? It's not about the situation that you're in. And that situation can be the pandemic, but let's just be real. There's a million other things that are happening to people right now that are as big as the pandemic or as difficult as the pandemic has been. And so it's not about, for this, I'm going to react this way. It's in general in life. What are you going to do with it? It's already there happening. You can't take it away. But what are you going to do with it? Is the question. $1 million question. And so if it is deciding whether your kids are going to go back or not, don't attach to anything because that is part of the pain that we feel and we continue to feel because we attach to our idea of how things should be. And we have noticed in the past 12 months that nothing is going our way, or many things are not going
Mm-hmm.
the way that we thought that things should go. And so, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stop living because, something's happening? No, you find a way. Like you said with that decision, you made a decision and then you changed it because it didn't work.
Work exactly. Yep.
And it's fine. Everything is going to be fine. But we got to make it fine. And how we do that is doing all of these things that we're talking about and making sure that every time that we're going to share information, anytime that we're going to open our mouth, we think about um, what is it that we are contributing to the other people that we're talking to. Because more fear, more sadness is not necessary. Those
Mm-hmm.
things are there because it seems like they don't go away. So don't add more of this thing, right? So if you're gonna give explanation, instead of talking about, oh, this many people just passed away because of the thing, talk about the other many people that are not getting the things because they're doing other stuff
Mm-hmm.
differently. Because I think that this is the time where we empower each other. And talking about the negative part of it, it's not empowering at all. And some people think it is, and then I understand why, because, knowledge is power type of thing. But the other side is also knowledge, and it's way more power.
Definitely. Totally agree.
So please, if you don't do anything today, just subscribe to our channel, like, comment. Let us know how you have been able to survive this past 12 months because they have been difficult.
Mm-hmm.
We are also on Instagram at Living as Latina. We have an email, livingaslatinas@gmail.com, where we receive topics that you guys are interested in. So talk to us, leave us messages, email,
We're
anything that
everywhere.
you guys, any, any topics that you're interested for the future. And in the meantime, just remember to be kind to others and to yourself because these are difficult times, my friend.
Definitely. Bye.
Thank you.